Hi, Anti-Society! Welcome back to the Antisocial Planet. Today we're getting to some more Vinland Saga, and I'm not entirely sure we're going with the season yet because we're doing this kind of detour into being on this farm, and it seems like Thorfinn specifically isn't really interested in anything at all, which is why it's probably a good thing that we are meeting this new character, this man who's in charge of these hired guards for this farm. He seems a lot like Thors. He reminds me a lot of Thorfinn's father, which I feel like is going to be important for two possibilities. One, I think it'll knock Thorfinn out of this empty-eyed, uncaring, very apathetic state that he's been in for a while. And two, I think that it will prove to him that people like his father can still exist. There's still people like that, regardless of the fact that all these other trials and tribulations have happened, and that doesn't mean that people like Thors can't continue to exist in the world. I don't really know where we're gonna go with him coming to the rescue. We had Thorfinn's like ear being cut and he was pretty badly beat up. I'm not entirely sure how this is all gonna go, but let's just get into the episode. In 3, 2, 1, go. Oof, that way like the darkness in the background and then it coming into focus. Yeah, you're not gonna be able to phase him. He is completely empty. It is scary. Like, he really doesn't care if this kills him. But he's scared. I think it's interesting that's like Sneak and Fox was the names. Not all confident anymore. Yeah, we have Badger too, so like they all have kind of animal names. Oh, the bandage on his nose. He really didn't do anything. Like, nothing at all. Which seems to have intrigued some people and scared others. Oh, he speaks. Honestly, getting a couple words out of him is impressive. That's it. End of conversation. Ooh, that got a reaction. Oh, interesting. I didn't think of the comparison to Asclath. Like the look in his eyes reminded him. That would be a good way to get him out of his apathetic state too. Yeah, no, he's real good at fighting. He did nothing because he chose to, not because he couldn't do anything else. Good point. So I wonder if it'll be like kind of a mixture between like Askeladd and Thors, and also like obviously his own person. Woof, that lighting change. Understood. I hope so. Yep. He could fight back. He doesn't. Apparently. It's a good question. Maybe see your family? Like you have a mom and a sister that are just like still around. You that friend of your dad's who's looking for you? That's a possibility too. Knut? Kind of friends, sort of. That's a possibility. I think it's really interesting that it was because he saw a similar look to Askeladd, and that's what broke him out of it, and that's why he fought back, right? Is because it's like cueing into that motivator that he had for so long was like this person that he had to best in a fight, and that was his motivation, and that's kind of what knocks him out. But I think it's also like, how's that going to spark his next motivation, right? It's really interesting. I do wonder what he'll do, because he's like, yeah, I guess I do want to live, so I guess I need to find a purpose. But I feel like that's going to change the whole dynamic of how he interacts with like the other people on the farm, and how he's going to like do his job now, right? Like, how do you just go back to doing his job that he did from this place of like apathy and passiveness when he has discovered that he does in fact want to live? Also, just like the art in this is so good. Like, it was always good. It was always a beautiful show, despite the brutality of the story, but they're really playing with more like artistic ways of storytelling that I really love, like really utilizing the visual storytelling of animation, which is fantastic. Also, the symbolism of like a dung beetle, like, you know, like someone who's working, but it feels kind of symbolic of Thorfinn's experience now. It's a mild word. I think they were going to. Yeah, agreed. That does seem to be his experience. It's so weird to be like, people being nice. I'm like, yeah, but they're also keeping slaves. You know, like, it's just it's a weird situation to be in. Like, are they good people? No. But like, they're not terrible either, I guess. Like, it makes me feel weird. I also feel like it's symbolic that his outfit is changing. Right? Like, he is different now, both like in appearance. Yeah, say thank you. Manners. Mm-hmm. I love the symbolism of that too, like the pouting like hedgehog. It's also kind of hard to get a thank you out of him before this, so he's always been a little moody. Just back to work. Going to clear some more of the forest. Perhaps buy your freedom, I guess, instead of just I don't again, they could just let them go. Aw. I like the staking together though. Like I guess they're kind of friends, sort of. Maybe. The beginnings of a blossoming friendship. I wonder if they show up to like give them like lunch and they've eaten it, if Thorfinn is gonna fight back more. Like if he's not gonna be as complacent as before because like he wants to live, which means he needs to eat properly and rest properly and nope. He's been through a lot. I also love the detailing of like them having like chapped lips, like the fact that they're not cared for, they're dehydrated, like just it's just like the tiniest detail, but it just like adds something to the storytelling. Sort of. More adjacent. Yeah. Like strategically placed in specific places to go after people. Oh, that definitely a yes. He just as a casually just like, yeah. Good question. Do we know the number? That'd be significantly less threatening if he wasn't holding an axe. I was gonna say, I'm like, I don't think we know how many. Especially like in the chaos of it, and like what counts as like killing and what doesn't, right? The symbolism of that picture. Like all the fallen trees around him, like the carnage, the death, the destruction. But it's a complicated feeling. Because he was also like, oh, I've been on the battlefield since I was like 5 or 6. And it's like, well, what do you expect a child to do then if like they find themselves in a war zone and being pushed into that life and they need to survive? And like you don't expect like a 5 or 6 year old to make good decisions, like moral decisions, and to like really contemplate the consequences of hurting people or killing them. Like it's hard for like you can't like wrap your head around that concept of that as a 5 year old because you have no concept of like other people really being people or like the longevity of consequences. Uh-oh. Is it an actual fire or is it symbolic? Good transition. I think it's so interesting that they had like the eyes line up between like him as younger and him now because not only was it a good transition, but I feel like it's like he still kind of sees the way that the world the way he did when he was a kid. You know, like his opinion is still shaped by that moment. Oof. What I feel like he's gonna try and hurt him. Good luck though. He's decided that he wants to live, and also you saw the way that he moved before. So like I think if it really comes down to it, I don't think it'll work out for you. Sir? Ooh, that symbolism. 'Cause before we had him saying like they only see the other slaves as like bugs or less than bugs. And then showing him stepping on the bug. Oh, and the panting because he's running out of breath. That's scary. Also stylized. Is this gonna be him actually fighting back in the real world? Because he's fighting in his like dream? Because he's fighting to live in the dream, so I'm assuming he's gonna be fighting to live in the real world too. Here I was being like, maybe their friendship will start. I feel like this might be a bit of a difficult thing to get past. You know, like how do you bounce back from from that one? Ooh, he remembers at least one of the people he got killed. I mean, he probably could feel the fact that he was being strangled, right? Like, is he just not gonna know? Yeah, see, he is different from the people who killed his family because, like, when he's a person and he, like, empathizes with Thorfinn, and, like, I think that's where, like, a bunch of the anger comes from, is, like, I hate that I see you as a person because I know what you did. It's true, he has, like, a different perspective because he feels like he needs to live and make something of his life because his mom and his sister died for him, to protect him, to have it so he's alive now. True. I feel like therein lies the conflict of, like, him being like, you didn't kill my family, but you killed somebody's family. And he said, thank you. Oh, it's complicated. Whoops, does that? Is it Canute? We have, like, the circlet. It looks like it is. Blonde hair, blue eyes, lashes. Oh, I have so many things at the end of that. I don't even really know how to feel. It's so complex. I know that they're, like, on opposing sides, but they've both found themselves on this farm, right? Anna and Thorfinn. Opposite sides in the fighting and invasions and stuff that's happening, but then on this farm they are at the same place. And I feel part of his hesitation, Anna's hesitation in trying to kill him, it's I don't know how they get friends after this, other than Thorfinn doesn't know that it happened, but still, I'm gonna know, I know, and I'm gonna be like, oh no, do we want to be friends? Anyway, I feel like his hesitation with that is partly to be like, oh, you didn't kill my family, is a little bit different. His anger is somewhat misplaced in that this isn't the people who actually killed his family and have made him feel the anger towards the Danish the way that he does. But also I feel like it's because he can see Thorfinn as a person and he can see how damaged he is. He knows from looking at him, the things that he says, the way that he sees the world. He has been through so much. And that goes back to his line of, I don't want to hear what kind of terrible fate that you've been through. I don't want to know all of the trauma and awful things that you've been through, because that means that I feel empathy for you. And if I feel empathy for you, then I have to reconcile the fact that you were on the side of the Danish against England, invading England, my home with my people and my family, and I see you as a person that empathize with you, right? You may not have killed his family, but you did kill someone's family, right? Thorfinn has killed a lot of people and he admits that openly. And just because it wasn't Eianar's family doesn't mean that Thorfinn is a good person. He's not, but at the same time, he's a very complex, damaged person who is shaped by the world that he found himself in and the people around him. Him saying, oh, I've been on the battlefield since I was like 5 or 6. Think about that. He has not only been in a war zone, basically, since he was 5 or 6, he was constantly there because he was with Askeladd and his group. None of them wanted him there. None of them liked him. Definitely, probably some of them wanted to just off him because he was like a hindrance, right? He's taking up space. He keeps asking Askeladd to fight. He's probably eating food and using resources and stuff. I know that he was like hunting and stuff as opposed to taking the food that was like within the camp, but he's taking up space and he's tagging along. It's probably way less convenient to have him there than to just off him and keep moving, right? And they could. He was 6, right? It's not like it would be difficult for them to get rid of him and keep moving. So even in times when he wasn't directly in a battle of some kind, he still was. Like, he still had to be completely on his guard constantly, always paranoid, always alert and aware of the people around him, because he could have been attacked at any point and it wouldn't have mattered to anyone around him. At 6, like 5 and 6 years old, and then growing up in that environment, and that's the world that he has been shaped by. Like, the weak always lose to the strong. Being strong is the only thing that matters, and that's like the nature of things, is that the strong take the place of the weak. And, you know, there's being this kind of like callous nature to him. You have to think about, I know that we saw a bunch of it in season 1, but think about the way that your brain would develop in that kind of environment. And now he's here and there's nothing is threatening him. Nothing is requiring him to fight or continue. And I feel like that's what the apathy comes from. It's not just missing a direction. It's like, how do you come down from the constant adrenaline and stress of growing up in that kind of environment when you find yourself in a place where you don't really have to deal with that anymore? And I feel like that's why with him being mistreated by some of the people on this farm, it doesn't even really register with him anyway, because he's so used to it. That's just the world that he is in. He is used to people not being kind to him and treating him awfully and hurting him and wanting to kill him. That's just the world that Thorfinn knows. And I think that it is way stranger to him when people are kind and show compassion. Whereas with Eianar, he grew up in a world where that wasn't there, right? Even with rebuilding his village from when he was a kid, yes, there was still the trauma there and the worry that something would happen to the village again, but he had a family that raised him. He got to be in this place that was peaceful with people who cared for him and were looking out for him. And war was a thing that happened far away. And so him being in an environment where people may actively be trying to hurt him on a constant basis is something that he does not understand. And because of that, his default is to treat people with empathy and compassion, because he grew up in a place where there was a lot of empathy and compassion and people looked out for each other, which is not Thorfinn's. It's like this clashing of the two natures of Thorfinn being used to everyone being a threat, meeting someone who is not necessarily. I guess he's a little bit more of a threat than he was before, because we did have the strangulation thing anyway. And then Einar meeting someone who he should be in conflict with, but his default is to be empathetic and to understand what people are feeling and to help them, right? You have these two clashing upbringings and personalities, and they don't really know how to give away the way that they were raised and their nature based on how they were raised. It's fascinating to see these two characters interact, and it's so complex, and I don't know how to feel, which I feel like is just this show. The moral ambiguity of this whole series, it just has me in knots, because like I get it. I understand that's more realistic, more true to the history that is being talked about in this, but also I want some clarity just for my sanity, because I don't know who to cheer for. I don't know whose side I should be on. Maybe I shouldn't be on anyone's side. It's so complicated, but in the best way. Obviously, I love a good character analysis. I love getting to just pull apart all of the symbolism and stuff, and there's just some great shots in this. The artistic license of this series is so good. I love that they're just leaning into the fact that this is a visual medium and it's animated, and they can do cool things with coloring and switching between different styles, right? And the way that they choose to light certain frames and stuff, it's just gorgeous, and I love it. I hope you enjoyed watching that along with me. You can click this playlist to go into my previous reactions, or you can subscribe so next time I post a Vinland Saga reaction. I will see you in the next video. Bye!